So we're here once again, in your face. We're here with the extremely special guest. This is my uncle. When I learned about the reparations movement, he was there working. He never heard of me. He never seen me before. I sent him an invitation and he accepted my invitation to talk about his efforts. He goes by the name of Kamm from N-Cobra. We're going to get into everything he's doing, him and N-Cobra's doing tonight. So you better get your pen and pad ready in order to get involved and help this uncle out. You understand? Get it all together. Get yourself together. Show up. Turn out. Because it's going to be a doozy tonight. The man of the hour, Kamm Howard. We're going to get into some praise and worship. And we'll be right back. How you doing tonight, sir? Matter of fact, while I'm pulling this song up.
I'm good, brother, if you're speaking with me. Great.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Stepped out of bail, I did a diddy bop. I had to tilt my hat at the city cop. I walk away free cause I'm innocent. And when I walk the whole world, oh a nigga wild. We been at the gas station all night. We been at the gas station all night. They done had the bag waiting all night. Tell them that it's lit, bitch, we on fire. Ay, praise to the Most High. Ay, praise to the Most High. Send it praise to the Most High. Praise to the Most High. Devil want a nigga show. I beat that nigga 1,000 times in a row. Couple weeks ago, he thought he threw his best shot. All I'm looking at is Twitter playing friend or foe. Cloud chasers need the relevancy. Hard talk come from me, relevant MCs. None of those guys are relevant as me. Guess what that means? I'm on a whole nother league. Wait, don't stop, let's tell another story. What the fuck happened to rap? This isn't for me. Never did I ever think I would see the day. Rap niggas telling the cops to come for me. They try to turn me to a cold felon. All they help me do is get some more millions. All I see is free toy, free toy. Homie, I was in Miami on the shore chillin'. I got a whole new chick, mean. We on the island and she fucked me like she off a beam. I'm out in Jersey and I'm ballin' like I'm off the team. I bought it for it's a Birkin or it's off the lean. Stepped out of bail, I did a diddy bop. I had to tilt my hat at the city cop. I walk away free cause I'm innocent. And when I walk the whole world, oh a nigga wild. We been at the gas station all night. We been at the gas station all night. They done had the bag waiting all night. Tell them that it's lit, bitch, we on fire. Ay, praise to the Most High. Ay, praise to the Most High. Send it praise to the Most High. Praise to the Most High. Soon as I get my masters back, they want chatter. Now I'm independent, niggas want fended. White labels trying to turn my black folk against me. Been selling weed, that nigga don't offend me. Tell my trappers get blooming bags ready. We finna fill them bitches up with Mad Reggie. Take them to the block, sell them at exclusive price. And if they ask why it's trash, lease the bag heavy. Devil want a nigga soul. I beat that nigga 1,000 times in a row. Ballin' on a demon like a pick and roll. She ugly, then I gotta hit her with the wall. Still up in this bitch going hard, nigga. Running through these bitches like a yard, nigga. I'm watching Complex for the talks, nigga. Cause it's an everyday struggle, fuck more, nigga. I I spent 4 seasons at the Four Seasons. I might even flex just for no reason. Got a penthouse in DR and PR. I call it pH balance and it's Puerto Rican. These niggas don't like me. I'm feeling Gucci, man, and I'm so icy. Wear these niggas out like a white tee. My comeback rate super pricey. Stepped out of bail, I did a Diddy bop. I had to tilt my hat at the city cops. I walk away free cause I'm innocent. And when I walk, the whole world know a nigga why. We been at the gas station all night. We been at the gas station all night. They done had the bag waiting all night. Tell them that it's lit, bitch, we on fire. Ay. Praise to the Most High. Ay. Praise to the Most High. Send it praise to the Most High. Praise to the Most High.
So that's one of my favorite songs out right now. I thought it would have hit 80 million views by now, but 25 million ain't nothing to sneeze at. 24.5 million.
That's for
You
sure.
understand?
Right.
And so you got a Black Power video that came out directly after this, and that is doing just as well. So, you know, we have these youth programs and these organizations, and so we try to keep that intact as well, you understand, and try to appeal to the youth. You know how that goes.
For sure.
Yes. Listen, you know who you are better than I do. Talk to the people. Let them know.
Well, thank you, my brother, for reaching out to us and allowing us to come by and share a little bit of what we're doing and who we are, and reach a new and different and wider base of our people, man. You know, we have to be in all these spaces, man. You know, raising this issue up. So yeah, my name is Kamm Howard. I am the national male co-chair of N-Cobra, the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America. Also serve as a commissioner on the National African American Reparations Commission. And I was the working group chair of the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations, which is a revolutionary Pan-African organization that's chaired by Holiest of the African People's Socialist Party. I should have deadened this phone before I got on, but let me do that now. So, you know, N-Cobra, the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America, is a mass-based organization. We've been around since 1987. And when I say mass-based organization, that means it's a composite of all of our people, no matter what political orientation, political persuasion you have. As I stated, you know, personally, I'm a revolutionary Pan-African Black nationalist, but not all of our people view their sojourn in this country in that way. And so there had to be an organization that encompassed all of the political and identity thought processes that we have as a people. And N-Cobra N-Cobra was that organization. So, you know, it doesn't matter if you were deep in the civil rights movement, whether you're in the human rights movement, whether you're down with repatriation, going back to the motherland, whether you want to create a self-determined reality here in this country, or you want to fully integrate into American society. N-Cobra says you had a voice, you had a right to fight and struggle for reparations because your ancestors, you know, succumbed through those atrocities, made it through, or you wouldn't be here. And as a result, you have a right to struggle on behalf of them and on behalf of yourself in the future. So N-Cobra is that organ. We're comprised of individuals and organizations. At our very first meeting when it was formed, it was at a Howard University at a National Conference of Black Lawyers.
You talking about that was in 87?
1987. And most people don't know that the National Council of Black Lawyers was a group of Black lawyers who committed themselves to fighting for brothers and sisters who were wrongly incarcerated in the struggle, who were engaged in political struggle against this country. And so they were the legal arm of the Black Revolution or the Black Power movement at that time. And so, you know, in the 60s, I think they started probably in the early 60s. But by 1987, they had been approached by a brother by the name of Mario Bedelli. Mario Bedelli and his brother were the brain thrust behind the PGRA, the Provincial Government of the Republic of New Africa, was a Black nationalist organization that began in Detroit. One of their major significant formations or significant acts that these Obedelli brothers, him and his brother Gaidi, Amari and Gaidi, one of the significant acts that they did in Detroit prior to the forming of the Republic of New Africa was that they invited Malcolm X to give a speech, which turned out to be his last speech, the bullet. And so, you know, as you know, Malcolm X was the voice of the new wave of Black nationalism. We know Black nationalism goes all the way back to you know, to an enslavement. You know, we were, you know, fighting to, you know, have a section of this country that, you know, we could go to and be safe and be self-determined, et cetera. And so, you know, but Malcolm X brought in a new era of Black nationalism and blending many, you know, the Panther Party and all these other parties, Black national organizations kind of grew out of the charge that Malcolm X gave, and the Republic of New Africa is one of those charges.
Let me ask you. Do you think the power structure is more comfortable or less comfortable with self-determination today?
Well, I don't know how comfortable they are, but they definitely, the terms that are being used, international terms that are being used today that weren't being used, like reparations wasn't. You know, 1987 when N-Cobra started, you know, wasn't nobody talking about reparations. You know, right. And one of the first missions was N-Cobra. Well, one of the first charges, duties that they established was they had to make reparations a household word, because at the time it was only, you know, among nationalists, and even not all nationalists were even talking about reparations. You know, Queen Mother Moore, you know, who was a Garveyite, you know, she in the 50s, probably from the 40s on up into when N-Cobra was founded, she was one of the major voices in this country on reparations. But, you know, it was with this, you know, this fringe movement. It was always seen as a fringe movement that we began to reach out beyond the nationalist voices, and we began to bring in NAACP and, you know, some of the other so-called mainstream Black organizations. But people don't know that mainstream was at one time nationalism. There was just as many nationalists in this country at one time, you know, coming out of enslavement up until the end of the Depression. You had just as many people who were, you know, seeking to be self-determined. We created our own hundreds of Black towns. You know, we engaged in all type of industrial work, you know, where we controlled the economics, we controlled the politics and the social institutions in our community, which is what self-determination is all about. And that was a major thrust coming out of enslavement. So this whole notion of mainstream today is one where, you know, we see ourselves primarily as subgroups of Americans. And this was not the only thought process or actions that we experienced. So going to say that, you know, now, so N-Cobra sought to widen the understanding and consciousness in our community around reparations to move it outside of just the national. And so what we did and what they did initially was to bring in organizations, Black organizations, National Conference of Black Lawyers, National Black Social Workers, National Black Political Scientists, all these national organizations that had, you know, a wide range of political thought within them that were focused on Black people at that time. You know, we were Black at that time. We had not shifted into African American, we were Black. And so these organizations grew up grew out of that consciousness movement to further the interests of Blacks in whatever profession it was, whether it was education or a business or economics or scholarship or whatever. These organizations were crafted, and N-Cobra sought to bring those entities into this push for reparations. And so we had some of the most radical minds in America were attached to N-Cobra at one time. If you mention any of the radical greats in our past from the late 1980s up until probably about 2005 or so, when the movement began to take a shift. All the radical minds had been either a part of N-Cobra, a member of N-Cobra, or had spoken in N-Cobra events, or were allies to N-Cobra if they weren't actually members. So, the radical stream of Black thought has always saw that what happened to us were crimes and that they needed to be addressed or redressed. And so that's really how N-Cobra began. Everything in reparations up until, everything in reparations in this country, N-Cobra's had a part in it. From, again, making it a household word to, these local and the federal bill, the first federal bill that we had, H.R. 40. It wasn't H.R. 40, I think it was Bill 3000 something when it was first introduced. But one of our members in Detroit, who came to be known as Reparations Ray Jenkins, Reparations Ray lived in Detroit, and he petitioned his congressperson, Congressman John Conyers, to introduce the reparations bill. And in 1989, he introduced that bill, which subsequently became H.R. 40. Every congressional session, we have to position the bill, so it's introduced to be the 40th bill introduced. As you know, the 40 represents the 40 acres and the mule that we never gotten. So every congressional session, that's something that we have to do to make sure we get that bill number every year. So, so in Cobra, we didn't really like H.R. 40 in its entirety as it was written back then. It was a conversation. We thought, some of us, the radical, the very radical in there, thought it should be a reparations bill and not a study bill at that time. But the Japanese had just passed a Japanese bill, reparations plan. And before they got reparations, they had a study bill. And so so Congressman Conyers said, well, let's go through the same process that the Japanese did. They just got reparations, $20,000 each. All of the Japanese who fought against the internment, who were in jail, they were given amnesty and released from prison. And we had hundreds of political prisoners locked up at the time.
And that was every year for the rest of their life, right?
Oh yeah, they were released. Yeah, they were released.
$20,000 a year for the rest of their life.
No, that was just $20,000 one payment. It was one payment. So it came out to about $2 billion because of the number of, but they had to teach this in schools and, that type of thing. So Congressman Conyers said, let's do it this process. Let's take the same process. Let's introduce a study bill, get that passed. And then the study bill at that time was also to make recommendations. And let's see what the recommendations come out of that commission. And so that bill was pushed for, up until 2017. Was last introduced in 2015 at that session. Every congressional session is 2 years. So, every 2 years since 1989, Congressman Conyers reintroduced the bill. In 2015, after that bill was introduced, well, let me go back a little bit. When it was introduced in 2009, it was introduced in 2009. Barack Obama was president in 2008. The Democrats controlled the House, they controlled the Senate, and they controlled the presidency. And Congressman Conyers called N-Cobra up to Detroit. Actually, we would come up to Detroit, our leadership. At that time, I was just a member. I was appointed for that meeting to be our legislative commission chair, because our work is done through national commissions. And at the time, there was a vacancy in our legislative commission. So I was asked to become the co-chair of the Legislative Commission. And in fact, the commission was kind of dormant. And so I went up to Detroit along with our co-chairs, and I think our secretary went up there, and we met with Congressman Conyers. He said, since we control Democrats, meaning we, not Black folks, but we, as far as he was speaking of his political party, control the Congress, control the executive branch. Let's push HR 40. I want to put all of my energy behind passing HR 40. And so we left that meeting with a plan to push HR 40 through that Congress, through, I think it was probably the 112th Congress or whatever it was. And we immediately began working to get all the Congressional Black Caucus members on, all of the Progressive and Hispanic Caucus and Asian Caucus members on who had signed on in the past. And we got up to about 40 co-sponsors, because Congressman Conyers said, if you get me 100, I can get this bill in the judiciary. We can have a vote in judiciary and then send it to the House floor. And so we found out there was a stall right around 40, 43 congresspersons co-signed. And we found out that Nancy Pelosi, who was the Speaker of the House then, she's the Speaker of the House now, said that she didn't want the CBC members or no congressional members bringing forth any controversial legislation. And certainly HR 40 was controversial. What she wanted to focus on only was passing Obama's healthcare bill, the Obamacare bill. And so that knocked HR 40 out the box. The next year, the Republicans took over the Congress and the Senate, and there was nothing being introduced radical by Black folks since then. And so HR 4, so once we saw that Congressman Conyers had abandoned his own bill because of his loyalty to the Democratic Party, N-Cobra abandoned HR 40. And we began to focus on local strategies, local reparations in cities and states and those things. And then in 2015, the National African American Reparations Commission was founded. It's called by Dr. Conyers. And they asked N-Cobra to sit on that commission. I sat on the commission. I was still the Legislative Commission chair. And one of the first things that was going to come up, we knew was going to be HR 40. And so when it came up on the agenda, I made the argument that HR 40, the way it was written, was obsolete. A lot of what it was designed to study had already been done, specifically whether or not Black people today still, whether there's any legacy of enslavement among our conditions today. Are we still affected today by what took place in the past? That was the main thing that HR 40 was designed to study, whether or not there was continued injury. And if it was, make some recommendations to address it. Well, we know that since 1989, there's been tons of research to show in education and health, COVID really showed the continued injury in health. But we had all these studies prior. The United Nations in 2001 had made a statement that, the atrocities of enslavement are still evident, and you can see it wherever Black people, people of African descent live. They're on the bottom in most socioeconomic indicators. And wherever they live, in the diaspora, you'll see the legacy of enslavement. And in 2006, I think it was, the House apologized, and in their apology, they quoted both Clinton and Bush too, who stated that there was continued injury, that what Black people suffer in this country is a result of the legacy of slavery and Jim Crow. In the Senate apology, they used the same quotations to Bush and Clinton. So we didn't need to study whether or not there was continued injury. And so I made the statement that, it was obsolete, it was written, plus Conyers was not even behind his own bill. So it's to even wage a struggle behind HR 40 if the lead sponsor is not pushing it, and it's obsolete. So they heard me and they said, well, if it's obsolete, let's revise it and bring a better bill. and then present it to Congress and see where he's at with it. So we spent about a year and a half revising the bill. We changed it from the study bill to a remedy bill. It begins where the first bill was supposed to end with determining whether or not there was continuing injury. The new bill begins with that. It begins, there is continuing injury. We understand that there's continuing injury in regards to housing, education, health, etc. What remedies must be developed in order to address all of this injury? And so that's the new bill, commission to study the aspect of injury, not whether or not there's injury, but how deep the injury plays out in our community. Study that notion and then develop proposals to meet all of that injury, all of that abuse, all of those conditions. And then once that, and put it into a report, major report, comprehensive report, then that report goes back to Congress to be funded. So that's where we are now. We've been working, N-Cobra's been working diligently. We introduced that new bill in 2017. In 2019, Congressman Conyers was forced to resign from the Me Too situation. He was forced to resign Congress.
What's that bill?
It's still HR 40. It's still HR 40. It's still called
Okay.
HR 40. So, but it's been revised.
It's been introduced every 2 years in the 40th position.
Right. So now it was reintroduced in 2019 or 18, end of 18. Congressman Sheila Jackson Lee took over from Conyers. She reintroduced it in 2019, and her leadership has been incredible as far as.
I can't see her abandoning.
Yes.
I can't see her abandoning. I think she was very proud to even be a part of that.
Be the lead sponsor.
Champion for it.
Yeah, she has been, and she's took in June 6 months, and behind the scenes there's a lot of work. So when you introduce a bill, especially if you introduce it on the first day of Congress, which we have to do, you have to line up prior to Congress even starting original co-sponsors. That means Congress people are going to stand with their sponsor and say, I'm co-sponsoring this bill right now as it's being introduced. That's called original co-sponsor. So we had to start working in December to get original co-sponsors. I think we had 19. That's the most it's been since Congress first introduced it. So we had 19.
That's where that now. I thought.
No. Now
like
it's at
80 now.
It's at 162, bro.
162 out of 400, right?
435 congresspersons. We only need a 218 to pass it, which is a simple majority. There's 230 something Democrats. So we have, enough Democrats. Right. So we have enough Democrats to pass it if it gets to the floor. But, one of the things is if you go into the floor with 100 co-sponsors, you need 218 people to change them to agree. 118 more to agree right on the floor. If you go in with 150, you only need 68 more. If you're going with 200, you only need 18 more.
And y'all at 100 and how many? 162?
We're at 162. So we've been working, bro. We've been working. It's been hard work.
Yeah, thank you.
Trying to get these, so this is.
We want to give your roses while you're here. You know what I'm saying? All you greats
much appreciated,
you know what I'm saying? That's putting in that work, bro. Yes, sir. 162 sponsors. Let me write that down. Yes, sir. Pray on that.
And we're not finished. After the election, we're planning for a markup in the judiciary. So markup is when a bill goes through the major committee and they weigh it, they tweak it, they amend it, and they vote it up or down. So this bill is in the Judiciary Committee. And once a bill is voted out of committee, then it goes to the floor where there's a full debate by, all of the congresspersons, the 435. Sometimes it's a debate, sometimes it's just a floor vote, depending on the bill. And then if it passes there it goes to the Senate. Same thing happens in the Senate. And then if it passes, it goes to the president to be signed. So we are going to have a markup after the election out of judiciary. We have the votes in judiciary. We have more than enough votes in judiciary to pass. Then it has to be scheduled to go on the floor for a floor vote. So we still have about a month to get more co-sponsors. So we're telling people all around the country, call their congresspersons, tell them to co-sponsor HR 40 now. We created a map on our website, N-CobraOnline.org. It's called the HR 40 Interactive Map.
Is there a dash in your URL?
No, it's N-CobraOnline.org.
Gotcha.
One word. And you go to the HR 40 iMap, you click on the map will come up, you'll see states, you click on the state you're in, that'll be enlarged. Then you see squares. Those squares represent congresspersons. You can click on, you can get, your group, your organization, your church, whatever, to just do everyone in y'all state. Y'all call in every, twice a week, every congressperson in your state. But if you click on one of those boxes, it's going to take you directly to that congressperson's website. And then you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll see the phone numbers. And you just simply call them and say, HR 40 is moving through Congress. We ask you to support it by being a co-sponsor. And that's it. And the call takes, 20 seconds, but, the more they count each call, especially if it's coming from their constituents. That's right. They count each call as 5,000 to 10,000 calls, votes. So it's very important that people are calling in that particular area. So we try to make it easy for people to join on this struggle.
Yeah, that's a very simple process that people can do from their comfort of their own home. Call into their local, or who are they supposed to call? Their
congressperson.
Their congressperson for
their federal congressperson in their district.
Generally,
and they can call everyone in every state. Yeah, they can call. Yeah.
Yeah, if they want to, they can call anybody, any congressperson in any state. And generally speaking, it's 2 per state, right? Except for the larger states, it's like 4, 5, 6.
Sure. So it's 2 senators per state, but congresspersons, it could be, California has about 40, 45, 50. It's a large state.
For the House. All right. So that's what you guys need to do. You need to get on that phone and tell them to sponsor HR 40 right now.
Right now. Can't wait.
Yes, sir. You can't wait. Because this is the moment, right? Like you feeling it. I mean, the exposure is, it went crazy with Ta-Nehisi Coates, the great man Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Yeah, Ta-Nehisi revived the movement. Yeah, it revived the movement. Because the brothers mainstream, we had never, and I go back to that, the nationalists have never stopped,
That's a fact.
It's never been a silent moment. I mean, we were doing things, even at the time that Ta-Nehisi was writing before he wrote it. But Ta-Nehisi being, a author in a major mainstream publication, I mean, that was like an adrenaline shot in the movement. Yeah, hats off to that brother.
Yeah, sir. So now you got a lot of Black people during slavery days opposed slavery.
Oh, for sure.
So I'm just wondering today, right? Like, why? You can't speak for nobody, brain. But why do you think that so many people oppose reparations for that?
So let me get some numbers though. So right now, I think it was one poll that you spoke about Black people, right?
Anybody.
Okay,
so let's talk I get them from everybody. I get banged on from everybody. I had to block 50 people in my group because they talking. People in my group don't like to argue. You understand? We just trying to get things done. So we
Right.
ain't got time to argue whether or not we deserve it and whatnot. So they come on there with that. Oh, well, what? I'm not talking about no representative now. Now these are all like 99% white people,
Oh,
but
okay.
it's a lot of black people that bang on me about it as well, though.
So for Black people, they really pretty much fall into two camps. And for Black people, you're really talking about 70%, 70, 73% are in favor of reparations. So you're only talking about, anywhere from 23 to 27% who are not in favor. And they fall into two groups. They fall into, I think the majority of those believe that we're not going to get it, so why fight for it? They don't believe it's possible.
Right.
Then the other part, is from self-hatred, don't want to upset master, don't want to do anything that will, upset, the powers that be, that benefit from the powers that be the way they are. Most Black people who are totally like legit, have this literal feeling against reparations are benefiting from the system the way it exists. And so, why upset that? So, and again, we're only talking about it's a minority. It's not a majority of Black folk. The majority of Black folk in this country are for reparations. When it comes to white people, we see more and more young white people are in favor of reparations because they, see the data. This generation is data driven, and so they see the data. They see all of the disparities that exist with Blacks and whites in a lot of different areas. And I think the last poll said something like 60% of millennials were in favor of reparations in the form of education or something like that.
Is that a large portion of the voting bloc, the millennials?
I believe so. I'm not sure what the percentages are, but yeah, the millennials were probably, because the millennials is a large demographic. So yeah. So, that's, the baby boomers, the white baby boomers are like 90% against reparations. So, these people who probably took part in Jim Crow, took part in the segregation against Black folks, they were.
So they can't take responsibility for it. Their minds won't let them take.
Minds won't let them.
I mean,
off,
do they
man.
have a soul? It's still an argument out in the community. Do they have even a soul?
That's right. That's right. That's exactly right. So when you look at, you have to break down the demographics when you look at, who's in favor and who's opposes. And one of the demographics that's really important, and it's because, it's really important now because we're in the election, is that we see that 90% of those who are in favor of reparations, 90+% are Democrats, and 90+% who are against reparations are Republicans. So, that's why this election is so important. One, we've never been this close to having a federal conversation in the government structure, in the House and the Senate, around redress for Black people since Reconstruction. We're talking 160 years since there have been any debate in Congress about redressing the crimes that have been committed against us. And in Reconstruction, we got the 13th Amendment out of that. We got the 14th Amendment out of it, the 15th Amendment. You had civil rights legislation passed that Dr. Amos Wilson said 25 years ago. The civil rights legislation that was passed during Reconstruction was stronger than the 1965 civil rights legislation. And we have proof of that because we know that the brother Byron Allen just recently tried to use that Reconstruction era civil rights legislation to win this lawsuit. This crappy Supreme Court shot it down, but it just shows how strong that law was back then, and it still has power today, as opposed to the legislation. So we're in a position where we have this federal government, because of all this going on in this country, all the things that Black folks are doing, the Black Lives Matter, the George Floyd uprisings, all of what we are doing collectively, those of us who are in the trenches, on the ground, doing work where people don't see the work we're doing, all of this collective work has moved this country to a position where they're being forced to debate the issue of redress for Black people in this country. Now, having said that, if it's going to be debated, it has to be through a Democratic push. Because as I stated, Republicans, we don't have—
90% of Republicans are against it.
Are against it. We have 162 co-sponsors in the on HR 40, not one Republican. And we have some districts, not one Republican. And so we have some districts, brother, in the South that has 30% Black populations. They're headed by a Republican, and those Republicans will not even sign on it. We questioned all of them. We contacted all of them. We sent people to their offices, and no matter how many Blacks they have in their district, they are not in favor of reparations. So the current climate back during Reconstruction, coming out of enslavement, it was the Republican Party that was in favor, and the Democrats were totally against. As you know, when Abraham Lincoln was murdered, the Democratic president rescinded the HR 40 executive order. But we know that in the 50s, the consciousness of both parties flipped. And so now, where the Republican Party used to be in Reconstruction, the Democratic Party is there today. And where the Democratic Party was during Reconstruction, the Republican Party is there today. So you have the Confederate soldiers who were in the Democratic Party coming out of enslavement, their progeny are in the Republican Party today. Mitch McConnell, his family own our ancestors, and he's the chair of the Senate. He's the Senate majority leader. So you have a reversal, and so people have to understand that this particular election, this particular time in our history is major when it comes to redress. We haven't been in this position, my brother, in 150-something years. And if it's going to be moved, it's going to be moved through a Democratic Congress, the way it's being moved now. If there wasn't a Democratic Congress, we wouldn't be having this conversation. It would be moved if we have a Democratic Senate, which we're doing as much work as we can to change the Senate over. And right now, if, say, we don't get a Democratic Senate, say it's a 50-50 split, there's 50 Democrats, 50 Republicans. Well, the vice president is the one who gives the tie-breaking vote. So if you have a 50-50 split and the presidency still remains Republican, we lose. And so even the presidency, we talk about downvoting, people talking about downvoting, just vote for the representative in the Senate, don't worry about the president. No, the president is just as important in this particular time. This guy cannot stay in office. We have to move this. And even as I start off saying that I'm a Pan-Africanist, I'm a revolutionary Black nationalist. For many years, we, stayed out of electoral politics, and we were trying to build our own governing system. But we know, that was one of the eras of the 60s. But we know now that we have to also infiltrate and move and make sure things happen that allow us to build self-determining institutions outside of this dominant society. But we have just as much as right as to direct our people on how to use this system as those who have been inside it for generations. But that's what we're doing. We say in order to move reparations, we have to have a democratic controlled governing body.
Okay, so now people that want to get involved with you, right? I think they're highly concerned that opposers will attack them in every sector of their life, their finances, and just invent legal issues and so forth and so on. Do you have a protocol of legal defense that people can tap into to protect themselves as they're trying to do something more than call their local representatives from their homes?
So right now, we attempt to structure our activism in accords with international norms, international law, Of course, when that doesn't conflict with American law, we try to do it within those confines because we don't have the power, organized power that you state that we need in order to be more aggressive, to be more radical in thought and action. And so, you know, standing on international law puts us above, you know, what America says is the final arbitrator of right and wrong. And so, you know, we force them to have to, you know, you signed on to these documents, you signed on to these treaties, these international protocols. You have to, you have to come up under these statutes. Of course, you know, they do what the hell they want to do because, you know, feel they're superior, but it puts a layer of protection, a small layer of protection under those who are struggling. When we do things underground, you know, it's difficult without a unified force to protect yourself. I like what the brother's doing, the We Not Fucking Around movement. I like what he's doing. Haven't really determined, you know, where they at right now, but I certainly like the idea of a protection unit for our people, and we have to have that. And so,
when you say you're not sure where they're at, what in what regards?
I'm not
their
sure.
Stance on reparations?
Not so much their stance on reparations. I'm not sure, you know, and I don't want to say that. Well, I'm just not sure of the depth of the organization, how it's structured, and whether or not this is, you know, just one person or this is a movement, you know. And so, you know, I haven't really studied it. Like I said, I like it. I like the idea. I like the young brother who's leading it. From what I've heard, watched a few of his presentations, but you know, joining something like that should require a deeper study, and I haven't made that study yet. So that's really what I'm talking about.
Two things: infrastructure to pay the beneficiaries of reparations, and the remedy conclusions of the new restructured HR 40.
So infrastructure and remedies. So that's what we should be focusing on. And as this legislation moves further and further along through the process, that's what you're going to see a shift in N-Cobra and National African American Reparations Commission more on infrastructure. Because you may have heard that there was a settlement in Chicago for John Burge torture victims. John Burge was a captain and the Chicago commander in the Chicago Police Department. And during the 80s, 90s, you know, he used his World War II torture tactics on Black youth and Black men to get them to confess to murders that they hadn't committed. And you're talking about 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, up to, you know, 30-year-old Black men were forced. They were, you know, electric shocked on their testicles. They were plastic bags was put around their head, and they were it was pulled tight, and they would beat them while they had the bags over there. All type of tactics he used. But it came out. He was eventually convicted for perjury, not for torture, but just lying about it. And there was a effort to get those who had been tortured out of jail, some were still in jail, and to pay reparations to those who were out. Now, this process, this thought or this action was initially initiated by a Black brother, a Black lawyer, Stan Willis, who also was a member of N-Cobra, a member of the National Council of Black Lawyers. And then it was subsequently co-opted by a Jewish law firm. And, you know, they won a $20 million settlement for these brothers. Not all the brothers, some of the brothers still locked up. So it has some flaws, but they won a $20 million settlement. But they administered everything. You know, Black folks had nothing to do with the settlement. Writing the curriculum was one of the things that the curriculum had to be written and had to be taught in schools. They had nothing to do with that. There's a memorial Portrait Memorial is staffed by a few Black people, but is controlled by whites. So we'll find the same thing will happen in a reparations settlement if we don't have infrastructure in place. And so that's really what we have to start working on. And what N-Cobra has been doing in that regard right now is been working on local reparations legislation. We know that Evanston was the first city, Evanston, Illinois was the first city to pass a reparations legislation. What most people don't know is that Chicago was the second city. And neither one of us knew we were working on local reparations. Evanston began in February of 2019, and in Chicago, we began in June of 2019. And so I think 9 months, 10 months later, Evanston had a reparations bill. 9, 10 months later, Chicago had a reparations bill. So we went through the same time process of passing legislation. And then Asheville, South Carolina, was the third city, and then the state of California. But what we have been saying and what we've been working on is that these local reparations efforts do three things. One, they provide what we call triage to Black communities where we're just dying out in our communities. You can target some resources in a couple of areas, not in a lot of areas. Not gonna get into cash settlement, but you can do something around, health. You can do something around education. You can do something around housing, as they're doing in Evanston, and you can, begin to target some resources in a few areas. The second thing local reparations does is it pushed the momentum for the federal legislation. We know that the Montgomery bus boycott, 1957, was the impetus of civil disobedience and nonviolent direct action around the country. And it was that action that was happening all around the country, in cities and small towns and rural areas all around the country, which pushed the federal legislation, the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, the Fair Housing Act. But if it wasn't for all of that activity going on around the country, those bills would have never got passed. And so we see the same thing happening with local reparations. It's pushing this notion of the federal legislation. And the third thing local reparations does is allows us to build structures in local areas to receive these federal resources once they are directed. So in Evanston, they created a stakeholders authority. In Chicago, we created the Chicago Community Reparations Commission. And so what these stakeholders authorities of these community commissions are, they're structures, they're 501c3s, they're organizations that are targeted toward delivering repair in these cities, but they also direct funds, and they also determine what the community needs are as far as repair. They create policies and programs around that, and then they solicit the governments or corporate entities for funds. When reparations is delivered at the federal level, we already will have structures in place to begin to carry out those federal initiatives, whatever those programs come. Other than that, white folks, Jews, gonna be just handling all of our reparations resources, taking the chop off the top. And so what we're doing, I wrote a pamphlet called Laying the Foundation for Local Reparations, a guide for providing national symmetry for local reparation efforts. This is a little small pamphlet. You can get it.
Place it in the camera correctly.
I don't know if you can see that.
No, not at all. Just clearly state the title.
It's Laying the Foundation for Local Reparations, a guide for providing national symmetry in local reparations efforts. So I kind of lay out what are the basic 5 or 6 things that a local reparations effort should be aware of, things put in place and why it's necessary, how to build an argument for local reparations. And then I lay out the argument that these local initiatives are the structures for receiving federal dollars and federal resources. Now, you also asked about remedies. Now, that's really the major impetus, the major impact that N-Cobra had on the HR 40 bill was around remedies. And I also talked about the power of international norms and international law. So, in this country, and globally, there's standards on how you do things, how you, address certain criminal acts, et cetera. And it's the same with reparations. In this country, they think that, apology is enough. That's the standard. We apologize, and that's all. That's all we had to do. And some,
Wait. That took a second to sink in. Okay. So in law, an apology is not directly linked to a redress?
Yes, it is, but it's not the only thing. In this country, in America, they think that if they apologize, that's it. They don't have to do anything else. There's no other part of redress that they have to do.
Oh, shoot. Okay, so they're ignoring the law.
They're ignoring the law. Okay. And so there is a concept called full reparations. Full reparations is the highest international standard on redress. There's no standard higher. I've heard some reparation programs that are announced by, some people in this country. They're a lower standard than full reparations. Why should Black people who have experienced the worst criminality, the worst harms of any people on the planet for 400 years, why should our redress be at a lesser standard than the highest standard of international law? If anybody deserves the highest standard of redress, it's us. So we're saying that we're not selling for any lesser standard. So full reparations is the standard. Now, full reparations has 5 components. The first component is cessation and guarantees of non-repetition. So whatever acts are happening, if they're still happening, you have to stop them, and then you have to put in place mechanisms that prohibit them from continuing. So we have there are a lot of laws in this country that disproportionately affect Black people. Police terror, the way the police interact with us is different than how they interact with everybody else. It's criminal in any jurisdiction on their behavior in regards to Black people.
The whole judicial system, the judges and the DA.
Everything, yes, sir. So this system that our reparations requires that we look at the 13th Amendment, that clause that says slavery is still, if you've been duly convicted of a crime, that has to be wiped out. Brothers got this, if they go work in these prisons, then they got to get paid, for these corporations. There ain't no small slave labor in prisons. So the whole policing, as you say, the criminal justice, there has to be total criminal justice rewriting in this country. So that's part of reparations under international law, cessation and guarantees of non-repetition. The second component is restitution. How do you return the people back the way they would have been had they not been injured in the first place? Had our culture not been stolen, our language, had our thirst and thrust of education, if we were been allowed to go to schools, if we hadn't been miseducated, and these drugs hadn't been dropped in our communities, where would we be economically if Black Wall Street wasn't destroyed and all these other thriving Black communities weren't destroyed? Where would we be if we had the money from our labor during enslavement, if our labor wasn't stolen? So, these are the economic programs, the economic programs, the educational programs, the social programs that are necessary to get us back to where we would have been. The third component is compensation. That's where the check comes in. That's one of the components of full reparations, compensation. Compensation can be a direct check to everyone. It could be tax relief. It could be grants, for certain activities. It can come in a lot of ways. We just have to be creative. The compensation is the third component. The fourth component is satisfaction. That's where apologies comes in at. That's where the rewriting of history comes in at. That's where monuments and museums and markers, to mark certain major events in our history. That's part of restoring our dignity. And so part of reparations is to restore the dignity of the people whose dignity was eroded by all these lies and false images that you project of Black people all around the country. I always tell a story. I spent 22 days in China in 2016, and while I was there, I'm walking down the street. Old Chinese women would walk on the other side of the street as I was coming up. And I'm an older brother. I think I was 55 at that time. I'm 59 now. And they feared me as if I was a 20-year-old or something. And that's because of this image that America projects around the world of black men, that we all of us must be feared. You can be 90 and, in a wheelchair. People will fear a Black man because of this image. So part of reparations is the restoration of our dignity as a people. And not just Black men, but Black women. Black women are said to be overly sexed or undersexed, and they need sex all the time. And we know that they did operations on them during enslavement, saying that they didn't feel no pain, so they could do all type of barbaric actions against sisters, and they still do that today in these hospitals on a lesser scale. But they still do not respect Black women in these hospitals the way they didn't respect them on the plantation, or the level of respect they give to white women. So that's the fourth component, the satisfaction. And the fifth component of full reparations is rehabilitation for our heart, mind, and spirit damage. COVID-19 showed that, I don't know if you're familiar with the term transgenerational epigenetics, injury or epigenetic inheritance, but
yes, that's when you inherit trauma through your genes.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. You inherit trauma and you inherit disease, or you inherit the propensity of disease, because when you inherit this trauma, just like stress. So when you inherit trauma, you're inheriting a layer of stress on the gene. And so you have premature aging, you have a weakened immune system, or you have what is called autoimmune disease, where your immune system turns on itself. And so these things are a result of enslavement. And so when you look at COVID, and COVID was attacking all these people with pre-existing illnesses, well, the pre-existing illnesses was a result of the transgenerational epigenetic injury. And so what you really weren't seeing was pre-existing illness. You were seeing the results of enslavement and the trauma and even police terror today is part of that trauma. So there's never been a time when we have not been traumatized in this country. And so rehabilitation is, how do we reverse the effects on our genes, that we can't see? Some of us are acting,
I think those repair extremely quickly whenever people make amends, like physical amends, real amends. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Real love enters into our body, and I think that repairs faster than just going the course, letting it run its course.
Yeah, so they're saying it can last up to 7 generations. So so and there's a brother who says that just as you were just saying, just as the trauma can be inherited, the love that we express with each other, our identity, and the vibrations that we create once we've been repaired can also be passed down generationally. So
I think so too. So now, do you think it's possible to prove, a unilateral war in hindsight? We see that a lot of people are finding out that we have been in a war all this time, mm-hmm. and it was always unilateral against Black people. And so do you think it's possible to prove that?
That this country has always had intentions of undermining Black life? Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I think that, I mean, we it's definitely was proved of being in enslavement and Jim Crow, the laws that, the housing laws, the banking laws.
Now, how would you title that approach, that argument, that question?
proving the war.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, we call it, does genocide still exist or does apartheid still exist in this country? And, you know, if you look at our conditions, our health conditions, you have to say genocide still exists, because genocide does not mean just killing people wholesale. It means creating conditions that cause and lead to the death of people. And so, you know, when you look at, you know, the miseducation, the lack of employment, the lack of healthy food choices, all of these conditions, the racial aggressions, all of these conditions lead to us dying prematurely. In Chicago, Black men have a 30-year lifespan difference than white men. 30 years. We live in the same damn city. Why am I dying 30 years before a white man?
Is that including the homicides?
That includes homicides, but even without homicides. But this 12 years ago, it was 18-year difference. I think it was 12. Might not. I think maybe 8 years ago, it was 18.
Life expectancy is widening.
And it's widening. That's right. So the homicides have play a part, but it's not, you know, 20 percentage points,
right,
or 20-year part. You know what I'm saying? So why are we dying? And then, you know, the homicide rate in Chicago is slightly higher than it's been in past. I mean, at the highest point during the 90s. So we had this homicide rate before. Now, you know, it's younger and younger people, and babies are getting caught up into it. And, you know, the amount of shootings is astronomical, but the homicide rate is high. Don't get me wrong. And it's you know, way more than what it should be. It should be zero. We shouldn't be killing each other at all. Right. But, you know, to put it in perspective, you know, this is, we're set on a record pace. But
aside from that, our health life expectancy is great as well. So that was between 20 to 30%. But that, again, that includes the homicide rate.
Includes the homicide rate. So 30-year life expectancy difference.
Man.
And so apartheid, so there has to be a war, you know, because if it was happening if it was in the reverse, all type of resources would be directed at their community.
That's a fact.
So, you know.
So what is the glitch in their brain, or, you know what I'm saying? What is the tumbling block that we can place there to make them understand that part, that if it happened in any other community, all resources would be focused on that community?
So I was talking a little bit about the data earlier. So it is the data that is which is not allowing white people to say it doesn't exist. Because at first they would just say it doesn't exist, or if it does exist, you're the cause of it. And so the data that you can find in every area, because we live in a big data era, they can't say it doesn't exist. And they have to recognize that the reason that it exists is because of certain things were done or were not done. And so one of the challenges that we still have, and that is white psychosis, or
that's what I call it. Yeah,
white psychosis. Yeah. So one aspect of white psychosis is that anything happening to Black people is okay. You can get hit by a car, you can get bit by a dog, you can get shot by the police. It's okay in the white mind, because they still don't see us as fully human. I mean, they had to rationalize how their husbands, their sons, and even the women did the most atrocious things out that any human person can do to another living being, even if it was a plant. The things they did to us, man, you know, defies
they
all.
wouldn't even do a plant.
they wouldn't even do a plan. That's exactly right, brother.
They did these
That's exactly right. And so they have to, they have to deal with that psychologically.
There's a story anecdote that I always bring up in this particular moment.
Okay.
When my great grandfather, two Klansmen, ran over his head with an 18-wheeler on his birthday.
Wow.
So that was, and he's got the same. I always remember that because he got the same birthday as me.
Wow, brother. So you inherited that. You inherit that. That's still in you. That episode is in your being. That episode is in your being, brother. And every birthday, on some level, that comes into your consciousness. And even if it doesn't come into your consciousness, your body is feeling it. So that's how we inherit. That's how we inherit the legacy of trauma, the legacy of abuse. There's one scientist who's saying that, every time we see trauma, that we're reliving, our bodies is reliving the trauma that happened to someone we may not even know, but it's in our DNA. It could have been 5 generations, 6 generations. We might not even know about the traumatic episode, but it happened and we're carrying it. And when we see these new acts of trauma, it affects us. So when these young people are seeing and doing all this stuff that they're doing, it's continuing this legacy of illness and trauma and injury that we've inherited, and that we're going to continue to pass it down and exacerbate it because we're adding more layers of trauma on top of it. So this is part of reparations that we see. We have to address all of these things, these 5 components of full reparations. And a lot of people in the movement right now.
Run quickly, just do the labels of those: cessation, guaranteed non-repetition, restitution. I missed number 3.
Compensation.
Number 4, satisfaction, compensation. For number 3, satisfaction and rehab of the heart, mind, and spirit.
Rehabilitation, yep. And so the international community says that's full reparations. And the goal of full reparations, as you said, how you see amends, is that, we're healthy, that, things are in good order. The goal of full reparations is to wipe out all consequences of the harmful acts. So you have a lot of people who are pushing reparations, but they're only pushing, for economic harm, or it's only going to deal with, whether or not we got some money in our pocket, whether or not we can open up a business or buy some things. Yeah, that's part of it. But as you can see, by me just going through that's only one part. There's layers and layers and layers of injury. I mean, that's injury, Yeah, my brother.
The appeal to white psychosis, generally speaking, I'm not a psychologist,
right?
But it would appear to me that psychosis can't be cured. Isn't that correct? There's no cure for psychosis?
Dr. Bobby Wright says there's no cure for psychopaths, but psychotics can be cured. But psychotics can be cured, medicated, but psychopaths cannot.
Okay. So that begs the question, are they vital to the passing of these legislations? Okay, because, when I look at the pacifier that was passed in '69, wasn't that just a solo conversation between Lyndon B and MLK?
Oh no, you had a bunch of folks, and if you looked at footages of all of their marches, it was multiracial. That was the thing about the civil rights movement, that it was a multiracial movement, led by Blacks, financed by Jews primarily.
So they are vital. So
yeah, it's vital that we, if you look at the numbers in the House, you need 218 votes. You have 55 Blacks in Congress. So, gotcha. You got to get 150 more from somewhere, 160 more from somewhere, and so, yeah, it's vital, for reparations that we have an allied. And
you say data will cure the psychotic, but not the psychopath. So there's always going to be those who are firm on destroying, and then the psychopath. I mean, the psychotics can be swayed by data, and then those who are with us don't need to be swayed. So, but as it stands, there's only 162 who are with us, and 55 of those are black.
52, because there's three blacks, CBC members who have not signed on. So 52 of the 162 are black, 110 are white, Hispanic, and Asian.
Got it.
The majority of those are white.
Okay, so clearly they can be swayed with data. And then you have, from my experience, the youth, this is the most political generation I've ever seen. And so they can do your special technique of calling their representatives and make this a reality. So a big push to the youth can make this a reality in a short period of time. But we just need more exposure, and it needs to be louder, and the youth have to perform calling their representatives.
Calling their representative, and they have to vote this election, man. This is the biggest vote for Black people in 150 years. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And people talking about not voting because Biden hasn't, dealt with our Black agenda or, sitting this one out, man. I'm telling you, don't put your faith in none of them. But we're definitely not going to get reparations if we don't have Democrats in office.
Okay. Yeah, that's a greater chance. Now, how does Nancy be moved out the way, because she's the blocker?
Well, right now she's in favor. See, nothing can go to the House floor without the speaker saying it can come to the floor.
She got on her knee, just like she led a lot of those people to get on that knee and beg forgiveness and to do and get really serious about reparations, didn't she?
White people, man, you talk about that psychosis, man. They can do a whole lot, man, when they,
They're good actors.
Hey, man, great actors, man. But she went on record saying that she was for a House debate.
Okay, record. Okay, if this is writing, then that's
we're gonna
strong.
push on that,
Yeah.
They changed their mind overnight, though, man. Second, they changed their mind in the middle of a word, not in the middle of a sentence, but in the middle of a word. Before they get the last syllable out, they already changed their mind.
Listen, man. Nancy Pelosi she's gonna do it. She's gonna do it. She better do it. How about that? Now listen.
Yeah, everybody's positioning, leadership in the Democratic Party to push it forward. And so, all we can do is do our job, fight the fight, and push it as far as we can with the numbers that we got.
And we need to stop talking and start doing. Start calling those people. Start calling those representatives.
A lot of groundwork that can be done.
Yeah, that sounds that looks. They actually consider your call between 5,000 to 10,000 voters. So make that happen, people. Now, I think we're running up on the hour that you have available to me. So let me get into this questionnaire here. How did you come to know about the reparations movement?
I first read it in a book. There was a book called Introduction to Black Studies written by Maulana Karinga. And he looked at some social movements, and reparations came up, and N-Cobra was in there. And I said, I get a chance, I'm going to join N-Cobra. And about 10 years later, I did so.
And how long did it take you to become the co-chair of N-Cobra?
So I joined in 2016, 14 years. And I've been the co-chair for 3 years now.
Well, you have a female counterpart, right?
We have a male and female leadership, yep. on the national as well as the local levels.
From your perspective, what are reparations?
Well, reparations, the N-Cobra definition is reparations is the process of repairing, healing, and restoring the people who were injured due to their group identity and violation of their fundamental rights by a government, corporation, institution, or individual. So reparations is not just a thing, it's a process of the people getting whole, people getting repaired. It's whatever steps you have to take, whatever resources you have to administer, whatever skills you have to bring in order to get a people whole and repaired. Some of those things we're gonna have to do ourselves. Some we need a tremendous amount of resources to do. Even the things we need to do ourselves and can do for ourselves with the current mental mindset that we have right now that is, disjointed and all that, we are not going to utilize our own resources and intellect and skills to the process of repairing ourselves. So that's part of repair. But reparations is, get into repair, get into wholeness, whatever it takes to get there by any means necessary.
So can we get you to start screaming, cut the check? That's my movement there, cut the check.
For repair, that includes the check. How about that, brother?
Beautiful. If you could publish that in your writing, I would be so honored.
Right,
now,
brother.
What does the concept of reparations mean to you?
This goes back to, Black people being whole, we're being self-determined. We're determining our own future. We're moving a step closer to liberation, sovereignty,
self-governing. That's right.
Self-governing, yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. I think we are grown enough to take care of ourselves now, Dad.
That's
you
right,
know what I'm saying? So yeah, so we've been, I guess we were little, teens in the 1940s and stuff like that, but we grown now. You understand? So you can let us go, and we won't harm anything. We'll only benefit society, as we have proven over these past 100 years of being separate but equal, and finally integrated, which I think was a mistake. But at the same time, it put us right beside everybody so that they can see our greatness. So our greatness has been thoroughly exposed. So their envy for us is irrelevant.
That's right.
You understand?
That's right, brother. Yes, sir.
So just let us be. Let us do our own thing. Now, when do you think reparations are appropriate?
You said when?
Yes, when. Mm-hmm.
They're appropriate right now, man.
300 years ago, according to my calculations.
I know that's right, man. As long as the people injured, they deserve to be repaired. As long as there's injuries present. And that's another thing people are talking about, once they cut a check or once they do something, it's over, it's in, we can't go back to them, it's settled. It ain't settled until we're no longer injured. When we can say that we are healthy, whole, and we're healed as a people, then we say there's no longer any reparations due. But as long as there's injury, if you get in an accident or some type of medical injury today, the judge is going to say, well, this is going to be something for the rest of their life they're going to deal with. So he gives them a settlement that's going to take them to the rest of their life. It's not something that, okay, we're just going to look at what's happening with you now, what your expenses are now, but you're going to have living expenses, doctor's expenses, all that for the 30 years from now. Mm-hmm. We have to pay you for that, as well as pay you for what you're experiencing, leading up to this time. And for the next 5 years, we got to pay you for what we think is going to be the reign of your life. And so we're saying the same thing. As long as there's injury, there has to be redress. It has to be repaired. It has to be resources targeted. And so when we say we're healed, that's when the reparations end.
Okay, what is anyone's cost for being on the wrong side of things on the wrong side of history?
Well, it belongs out, just like on the plantation, there was people who were on the wrong side of, you talked about, there's always been struggle against enslavement. Well, we had to struggle for 246 years because there was a lot of people in some of those rebellions that didn't succeed, were on the wrong side. They went and told master. And so that led to, more enslavement for the rest of their lives and for the lives of, hundreds of thousands of millions or more. And so, if you're on the wrong side of this movement right now, you jeopardize this moment, jeopardize this special place in history that we are around reparations. And you will more likely lead to us missing the moment and not getting reparations.
Yeah, that's possible. Okay, so can there be reparations without transfer of land and property?
We think that's part of reparations. That's part of full reparations because land is the basis of freedom. I don't think there's any revolutionary who ever lived who hasn't fought for land. And so land is the basis of freedom. I think Malcolm said that. So land has to be a part of reparations, whether it's, community land trust, where community purchases land that they share collectively, and where, they can build cooperatives or, cooperative living situations and things like that, or whether it's, a territory. There's still hundreds of millions of government land that they stole from Native Americans that they possess that, they could redistribute in the reparations settlement. So land is definitely a part of this, of any negotiated reparations settlement.
Thoroughly agree with that. I think that's a significant part of it. So I always think back to the original writing of the Constitution, where it says the pursuit of real estate, and that was changed to the pursuit of happiness.
Right.
And so they understood the original writings, and they took it upon themselves to follow the original. You know what I mean? And they procured to themselves millions of acres of land and millions of hectares of land as well.
Right.
Well, everybody else was out of the loop and didn't know that was a part of getting that thing. So, I mean, that begs the question: are we actual people, like according to as it stands right now?
Well, as I stated that part of the redress during the Reconstruction era was the 13th Amendment. The 13th Amendment conferred citizenship among anyone born in this country. We didn't ask to be citizens. We weren't questioned as whether or not we wanted to be citizens. We didn't agree to be citizens. It was forced upon us. And so in that that's part of the crime too. In that crime, there's been 80 years, 70 years, what is it now? 156 year struggle or confusion on identity in this country because we didn't determine way back then who we would be and who we were as a people. We've undergone a concept, who we are politically as a people. We've undergone a concept called ethnogenesis, where all of these African groups, African captives, through the history of enslavement, history of rebellion against enslavement, history of resistance during Jim Crow, the history of, being second class, third class, fourth class citizens. Through that entire process, we've undergone what is called ethnogenesis. We gave birth to a new ethnic group. Just like if you go to Jamaica, there were no Jamaicans prior to enslavement. but through their struggle being on that island, through that history, we now have Jamaicans. They went through a process of ethnogenesis. They also came from multiple African ethnic groups, the way we have here. And so culturally, we are a people. We are distinct people on the planet. Black American, African American, or however we choose to call ourselves. Some people call themselves ADOS now. We choose to call ourselves, we have undergone a cultural process of shared identity. However, it is not transferred into a political consciousness of shared identity, which is really the most powerful concept. Well, it's really the most powerful political economic consciousness itself. And that's what the Marcus Garvey movement was about: race first, political, economic, so in all things, race first, political, social, economic, culturally. And so because that citizenship was forced upon us, we're still grappling today with the notion of what are we a people, and if we are, who are we?
That's critical. Are you a Garveyite?
I am a Garveyite.
Mm-hmm. What are your views on previous attempts to pay reparations to the, how they paid reparations to the slavers, they paid reparations to the Jewishers, they paid reparations to the Hawaiians. And going back to your housing mentioned earlier, they were given leases for 99 years for $1 for land and houses. So what are your views on previous attempts to pay reparations?
Well, in each of those areas, there was some form of negotiation, a lot of dictation, but there was some form of negotiation. And so that has to be the same with us. We can look at those and see where they fell short, like with the Black farmers reparations, with some of the Indigenous American reparations, and the other ones that you mentioned. We can look and see, what, they did with those resources, what forms they were, and see if we can apply some of that to our situation. Our situation is unique though, because, it wasn't a single period like the Japanese internment or the Jewish Holocaust. It was a 6-year, both of those were about 6-year periods. It wasn't the indigenous people where, our land was taken from us, and we still had pretty much our own way of life that we can continue to live, and a lot of restrictions, but they were still, had their own autonomous areas. So our situation is grossly different. Even the Hawaiians, they were still on their land. So we can look and see what we can glean from those, but our situation is like I said, it's unique, and that's why we have to look at it from the standpoint of full reparations.
And comprehensive. Yeah, that's right.
Yes, sir.
Excellent, absolutely. So now, this will be the last question. I'll let you go, brother, uncle. So you got why are you so passionate about the reparations movement?
Well, the more you learn, the more you see that the level of criminality that has been imposed on our people for as long as it has. It's just like someone stealing something from your mama, man. When do you say it's over before you start trying to get it back? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. That's a fact. So, we'll do it. We'll go there now.
That's right. So, they done stole from mama, from big mama, from grandmama.
Oh, man. Everybody.
Right. So when do you stop saying, I'm going after that. I'm going to get that back. I got to. So for me, it's like the more it's like, damn, now I got to fight for that injury, that crime too. I got to fight for that crime too. I got to fight for that crime when they were using our babies as alligator bait. there's so much criminality, so much bestiality, barbarity, you know, these people have done to us. And, you know, your conscience ain't gonna let you go to sleep and say, you know, I'm gonna just let them slide. No. At some point,
See,
they got to pay. You know?
I think that's the top number one problem that they are facing in their mind. Like even the rational, the rational oppressors, right? They understand that the price is too high for them to pay. So, in the brand that we have, the Harvest Freedom Act, we are lobbying the New World Bank to uh, alleviate some of the pressure, and so that there will be absolutely zero pressure on the taxpayer, but there will be a certain level of burden for the American government in the form of land. Yeah, like you talked about with the millions of acres of land that we are signatories for in the treaties with the Black Indians. So, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, there's no struggle off limits. There's nothing that we shouldn't pursue, you know, and, you know, this struggle for redress for the crimes that are being committed against us. I'm in favor of any effort that bring resources to our community. There's, you know, that's a new approach. I think that is one that we've also always looked at. You know, our struggle has to be international as well. So when you look at the World Bank, that's part of that international struggle that, you know, that we, you know, stated that that's part of it. So I think that the more arrows that we're shooting, you know, at different targets, you know, that resources will begin to flow. And, you know, they're going to flow from places that we never even expected or thought. And I think it's very creative to go out, you know, to think outside the box the way you know, and looking at the World Bank. Because the World Bank, you know, they set up monetary policies for these criminals. So they're part of the criminality that's been waged around the country.
Let me make a quick clarification now. I'm definitely not talking about the old World Bank with who them boys, the old World Bank. I'm not talking about them with the big names, Rothschilds and the Bilderbergers, or none of them people. They are all incurable. And you understand? So they need to do something to themselves. Now, the New World Bank is ran by I call him the most righteous man in earth. That's what I call him. The new guy has structured all of these corrupt organizations up under his umbrella. He's a 7-star general in the Philippines, and he's not playing no games. Now, these people are being arrested and killing themselves and getting killed in the process of trying to arrest them, right, as we speak this entire year. So with that being known and it being true, can we get your support as we support you to call the representatives to get HR 40 remedy bill more highly sponsored, so that the vote will be successful this upcoming year? Can we get your support to present to the New World Bank in a coalition to alleviate some of the pressure for the taxpayer, and to leave America with the only obligation of co-signing us and issuing the proper amount of land for us to have refuge cities away from these terrorists all over the place?
Oh, definitely, brother. I can support that particular initiative, that action.
Man, you don't know how honored I am for that. Mr. Kamm Howard, I want to thank you greatly for showing up tonight and accepting my humble invitation for you to bless this platform with your knowledge and wisdom.
Thank you, brother.
You shared it and you laid it down quite flat. Woo-wee! I'm so happy. Is there any final words for this meeting? Hopefully you have billions of more words to say as your life continues into your
Thank you.
100.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that, brother. Thank you for that wish, for that prayer. Yeah, I just like to say, you know, you can go to ncobraonline.org, find out what we're doing. Definitely, you want to vote. We have a webinar that we're having on Thursday called Reparations is on the Ballot. We think that reparations doesn't matter in this election. It is the biggest thing for Black people on this election. And so we're going to have many.
What time is it?
It's 8 p.m. Central. You can go to Kamm Howard on Facebook, or you can go to, it should be up on our website, ncobraonline.org, and register. Definitely come on and see why our people are some of our most radical thinkers, as well as our long-term, civil rights, some of our civil rights voices are saying how this is an important election. They have been totally into the Democratic Party and electoral politics. But for those of us in the radical revolutionary movement to say that this is an important election, you have to believe that this is an important election, because this is not something we've never endorsed any particular party, whether it's Republican, Independent, or Democrat. We had no loyalty to no party. We still don't have any loyalty to any party, but we know that if reparations is to come in this particular period, is going to come through the Democratic Party. And if we want to make sure it happens, we got to make sure that the Democratic Party is in leadership. And we can do that in this election.
Mm-hmm. Now, to the naysayers that talk about Obama's ministry, how do you respond to those?
I always said that Obama was ran on the platform of genocide. He came in as a senator saying, there was no Black America, there's no white America, there's the United States of America. That is a statement of genocide. When you tell people that they don't exist and they have to assimilate, forced assimilation is part of the genocide, part of the crime of genocide. So he started running his election calling for the genocide of Black people. And so I was totally against that. I also stated that I'm a member of the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations. That organization began the first year of Obama's presidency, and every year through his presidency and through the Trump presidency, we march on Washington, D.C. against the social injustices, the wars that this country faces, and we fight for reparations. We've been doing that since 2008. We'll be back in D.C. on November 7th, a couple of weeks, marching again on Trump. So, we have no loyalty to either president. When Barack Obama was there, we were the only organization that protested him, a Black organization that protested him because of his capitalist, imperialist policy. So I'll leave it there.
Was that one of your men that got arrested in one of his rallies that was talking about his imperialist policy?
Yeah, that was Brother Diop Olabale out of Philadelphia. I think he was down in Florida. Yeah, he was. Yeah, that was one of the Black is Back Coalition members. He was also with Impedum, International People's Democratic Movement, but which is a member of the Black is Back Coalition. So yeah.
Well, again, Mr. Kamm Howard, the great uncle, we give you your roses while you're here.
Thank you, brother.
Keep up the good work. Thank you for inspiring me and my organizations. And are you connected with the Friends of the African Union in any way?
I no longer I am. I'm still on the mailing list, but I'm no longer active with the Friends.
All right. So I'm there all the time. So I'm gonna try to reach out to you and connect more often, so that I can get more active like yourself and your organization to move this thing further. Because my goal is to get the youth invigorated to call their local representatives. You know what I'm saying? So it's my philosophy that the youth control their parents, and the parents control the politicians, and the politicians control the police. So if the police is the ultimate goal for a lot of people, to, you know, get them off our backs, then you got to start with letting the youth get involved and not ostracizing them and bridging that type of gap. You know what I mean? And saying that they can't do this and they can't do that. Brother, anybody can sit down at their house and call the representatives, and like we said, that call is counted as between 5,000 to 10,000 votes.
That's right.
So that's a very powerful tool to call your legislators on the federal level. That's right. So thank you so much for blessing the platform tonight, and you have a blessed life, and I'll be in contact and getting more involved with you so that I can get as good as you. You understand?
Brother, you way ahead of me.
I gotta get there, brother.
You way ahead of me in a lot of areas, brother. We just have to continue to compliment one another, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's how we do. That's what the body is for. That's what the body. Right. You know, one body, one part of the body got to do this, and another part of the body got to do that. So that all works together, brother.
That's exactly right. In unity.
Yes, sir.
All right. Have a good one, man. I greatly appreciate you.
All right, love you too. Peace.
Peace.
So you saw it here first. Kamm, the brother was powerful. You better stop playing with me, Tone. I told you, man. You got to get the people involved. The youth got to deal with this, and they are the only people who can make things happen. I'm telling you. We've been talking about this for hundreds of years, but the youth got to say it. They got to make it happen. Call your congressman right now, and continue to call them until it happens. So I'm going to end with no praise and worship.
Stepped out of bail, I did a diddy bop. I had to tilt my hat at the city cop. I walk away free cause I'm innocent. And when I walk, the whole world know a nigga why. We been at the gas station all night. We been at the gas station all night. They done had the bag waiting all night. Tell them that it's lit, bitch, we on fire. Ay. Praise to the Most High. Ay. Praise to the Most High. Send it praise to the Most High. Praise to the Most High. Devil want a nigga show. I beat that nigga 1,000 times in a row. Couple weeks ago, he thought he threw his best shot. All I'm looking at is Twitter playing friend or foe. Cloud chasers need the relevancy. Hard talk come from me, relevant MCs. None of those guys are relevant as me. Guess what that means? I'm on a whole nother league. Wait, don't stop, let's tell another story. What the fuck happened to rap? This isn't for me. Never did I ever think I would see the day. Rap niggas telling the cops to come for me. They try to turn me to a cold felon. All they help me do is get some more millions. All I see is free Tory, free Tory. Homie, I was in Miami on the shore chillin'. I got a whole new chick, mean. We on the island and she fuck me like she off a beam. I'm out in Jersey and I'm ballin' like I'm off the team. I bought it for it's a Birkin or it's off Celine. Stepped out of bail, I did a diddy bop. I did that. I had to tilt my hat at the city cops. I walk away free cause I'm innocent. And when I walk the whole world, oh a nigga wild. We been at the gas station all night. We been at the gas station all night. They done had the bag waiting all night. Tell them that it's lit, bitch, we on fire. Ay, praise to the Most High. Ay, praise to the Most High. Send it praise to the Most High. Praise to the Most High. Soon as I get my masters back, they want chatter. Now I'm independent, niggas want fended. White labels trying to turn my black folk against me. Been selling weed, that nigga don't offend me. Tell my trappers get blooming bags ready. We finna fill them bitches up with Mad Reggie. Take them to the block, sell them at exclusive price. And if they ask why it's trash, lease the bag heavy. Devil want a nigga soul. I beat that nigga 1,000 times in a row. Ballin' on a demon like a pick and roll. She ugly, then I gotta hit her with the wall. Still up in this bitch going hard, nigga. Running through these bitches like a yard, nigga. I'm watching Complex for the talks, nigga. Cause it's an everyday struggle, fuck more, nigga. I got love for them till they count me out. Niggas mad, I spun they bitches like a roundabout. I see niggas trying to kick me when I'm down and out. But I came in here with a purpose, I ain't round for clout. Illuminati trying to get me, nigga. But I'm the one they gotta spare like a Britney, nigga. Through the hot and cold, I would never sell my soul. And if I gotta die for that, I'm dying Christian, nigga. I spent 4 seasons at the Four Seasons. I might even flex just for no reason. Got a penthouse in DR and PR. I call it pH balance and it's Puerto Rican. These niggas don't like me. I'm feeling Gucci, man, and I'm so icy. Wear these niggas out like a white tee. My comeback rate super pricey. Stepped out of bail, I did a diddy bop. I did that. I had to tilt my hat at the city cops. I walk away free cause I'm innocent. And when I walk the whole world, oh a nigga wild. We been at the gas station all night. We been at the gas station all night. They done had the bag waiting all night. Tell them that it's lit, bitch, we on fire. Ay, praise to the Most High. Ay, praise to the Most High. Send it praise to the Most High. Praise to the Most High.